So what we might make a start just so that we don't run too far over time. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is our fifth in our Healthy Aging lecture series, and I must say, on a personal note, I'm very excited about tonight's expert presentation. So tonight's title is Aging Intelligence, Valuing Citizen and Consumer Voice, and it's presented by Professor Lynne Corner. Just before I formally introduce Lynne, I'd just like to say to everyone, one, thank you very much for coming. I need you to know that tonight's session is being recorded, and that will later be released also as part of our webinar series with, of course, Professor Corner's approval. If you have any questions, and we would love questions to be asked throughout this, please write your questions in the Q&A section. If you have any technical issues, can you please put that in the chat section of the Zoom link? And then my last ask is, could you please stay online at the end just for a couple of minutes? There's a short poll about the webinar series that we'd really appreciate your feedback on. So in saying all of that, I'd like to now formally introduce Professor Lynne Corner. Lynne is a gerontologist and Director of Voice at the UK National Innovation and Ageing Centre, NICA. Voice is an international organisation established to harness the immense experience, skills and insights of the public of all ages and backgrounds, including older people with dementia. Members work with research and businesses to identify consumer unmet needs, priorities and aspirations, and co-design and co-develop products and services that are needed to support people living with dementia and their families. Lynne has a particular interest in horizon scanning for innovation, intergenerational relationships, and the use of artificial intelligence and data. NCIA and Voice work with businesses from all sectors to help develop their strategies for capitalising on the immense commercial opportunities for growth from global population ageing. She established the International Dementia Knowledge Exchange Innovation Hub and is a trustee of the Lewy Body Dementia Society. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Lynne, Professor Lynne Corner, to tonight's expert series, and over to you, Lynne.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to join you today, and thank you all for your kind invitation to join you. As you said, I'm Lynne. I'm COO of the UK's National Innovation Centre for Ageing, and we have a particular strategic focus on ageing intelligence. By that, we mean about harnessing just the incredible amount of evidence and intelligence that's already out there for us, and how we can actually bring that together to really kind of help people to understand how best to kind of make the most of this incredible opportunity to live sustainable, healthy, longer lives. So next slide, please, Erica. I'm going to talk a little bit today about, human capital and human experience and wisdom, and why we at NICA feel that this is just so important. If we go to the next slide. So this is our mission at the UK's National Innovation Centre for Ageing to add intelligence, and we've got this incredible opportunity to kind of utilise intelligence. I think what COVID has shown is that we've got so much intelligence that's absolutely everywhere. So ageing intelligence is about really bringing together the best available evidence from research and projects, partnering with organisations like yourselves, utilising artificial intelligence and big data so that we can actually look beyond the obvious, actually to the little nuances that are there, using the best, human machine learning, etc. And then bringing this alongside what we consider to be the most important intelligence in terms of people's intelligence, citizen intelligence, capturing that human wisdom, that experience, and the lived and professional experience of citizens and consumers, which we harness through our sister organisation, Voice, which is an international citizen network, which is now embedded in the National Innovation Centre for Ageing. And that's what I'm going to focus on a little bit more today, is this kind of concept of human capital and experience experience and wisdom. If you go to the next slide, I'm sure I don't need to say to this audience just, you know, what this context is, but we know that demographic change and population aging is perhaps one of the two great mega challenges and transformations of our time. And life expectancy is growing at 5 hours a day, which is phenomenal. And as we're addressing globally the causes of early mortality and recognizing that much of the aging process is actually malleable, much more malleable than we previously thought, we're generally living longer and we're reaching later life in better shape than ever before. So by 2050, 31 countries, including of course China, will have an older population than that of Japan today, which is you know, really, really significant this opportunity. Obviously, recently, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed this is the decade of healthy aging to improve the lives of older people across the globe. And by 2050, again, if we look ahead, many regions and cities will undergo really profound changes with significant shifts in median age and composition. And these transitions of 2 billion people over the age of 60 by 2050 will of course offer both opportunities and challenges, and we're going to have to understand collectively much more about the diverse and often contrasting patterns of population growth, where and how people are living, with fundamental differences of course between urban and rural areas. And of course, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and COVID will undoubtedly change this further. And we already have signals of changes in life expectancy ratios, and there are significant widening global and regional inequalities, which obviously frames much of this debate and context with huge strains on the planet's sustainability. So I think increasingly approaches and policies which put both citizen and planet well-being foremost and centre are going to be really, really important. Next slide, please. But of course, in terms of longevity, aging, governments, including Singapore and the UK and Australia, have recognised that healthy ageing and the associated longevity economies present just huge opportunities in every sector, with a diverse range of products and services needed to help us all to make the most of the opportunity to live and work and age better, enabling us to care for ourselves, just to enjoy a better quality of life for longer. So this is a massive consumer market globally, the longevity economy estimated conservatively really at $7 trillion. But if we are really to prosper, and if we are really to make the most of healthy longevity, modernize longevity economies, if we're to make the most of the fact that, you know, collectively how we can benefit from the opportunity this presents, we really do need to significantly invest in building and harnessing human capital. The evidence suggests that this gives substantial gains in economic growth and human capital outcomes, and arguably nowhere has done that more effectively already than Singapore. But our approach to aging intelligence is investing in human capital for healthy longevity, and especially perhaps now for post-COVID economic recovery. Because achieving healthy longevity means channeling investment in human capital sectors. And by this, I mean valuing investing in education, in lifelong learning, in skills, in health, certainly, but in social protection too. So that we're investing in through life financial and emotional resilience to life stresses. This, of course, needs to be in early years, but equally, we need to think of aging and longevity increasingly as, of course, in midlife and early life, so that we, into later life, can really benefit to make this 100-year life that is much talked about a reality for many more people. So this focus on human capital really transcends debates and myths and stereotypes about chronological age. This is about maximizing people's potential, their choices and their opportunities, whatever their starting point, whatever their age, whatever their circumstances, wherever they live. So putting that lens on human capital really does start to focus on inequalities and really starts to put the citizen, put the consumer, the person, first and foremost in all our debates. Next slide, please. A quick note, I think, on COVID. Obviously, a huge stress and strain at the moment. It's presenting short and long-term uncertainties and massive global, domestic, economic, health and social challenges. I think we all agree that the pandemic has actually exposed fault lines in health and social care systems that were pre-existing, inequalities, and it's really also highlighted the prevalence of institutional ageism and the extent of unequal aging, which again is core to be addressed. And I think a real danger is that the real progress that is made, especially in low and middle income countries regarding extensions in healthy aging and healthy longevity, will just be kicked into the long grass unless something fundamentally changes to address the equity of opportunity, education, across the life course. And if we do not really proactively address the massive underutilization of human capital. Harnessing human capital is essential to learning what people actually need, not what we think they need, but what they actually need, and also what they can offer. Their ideas, their insights, their imagination is really critical to harness for building a resilient recovery. And it is really important I think, to kind of always keep at the forefront of our mind that human capital is not just about young people. It's not about school education per se. Harnessing the human capital and experience of older people is a massive resource, and as yet it's largely underutilized asset. So we've really got to think of imaginative ways to effectively leverage that. As I said earlier, by 2050, 2 billion people over 60, that's just an enormous resource. The UK industrial strategy, at the moment, we have a strategy on grand challenges, one of which is healthy aging. And it's really struck me that in the narrative on that, it said that we will harness the power of innovation to help meet the needs of an aging society. But equally as powerful and as equally a great opportunity is to flip that around and say, how can we harness the power of an aging society of citizens and people to meet the needs of innovation? Because as I said, there is just incredible experience, imagination, insight, knowledge, wisdom, and ideas locked in the public. There's massive lived and professional experience from people who've experienced care, for example. And there's just enormous capability and capacity to positively contribute all of this experience to help us collectively as researchers, as innovators, as businesses, to meet the global societal challenges and really try and accelerate solutions, because certainly we can't tweak what we have. We've really got to think radically about this challenge if we are to kind of make the opportunity. So as we move towards recovery, as we look towards more people enjoying healthy longevity, I don't think there's ever been a more important time to think about how we can value and invest in our human capital and effectively really further harness and unleash the power of all of this human genius and ingenuity that's embodied in this. So how can we do this? A little word on voice. This is our organisation. Voice stands for valuing our intellectual, our human and mental capital and experience. It's essentially an international network of citizens who are really motivated to get involved in research, get involved in innovation with businesses, and contribute that experience. And so what Voice effectively provides through a digital platform and associated apps is this mechanism to make it easy for people to contribute and to organise their contribution and connecting people together, really, both within nations but also internationally, so that people can really easily kind of share their knowledge. We capture people's stories about what has worked for them, and then collectively we work with other organisations like yourselves, like James Cook, with businesses to really help to understand, okay, where are the gaps? What are the priorities? Where are the unmet needs? And what are people's aspirations and desires? So how can we then bring all of that insight together and really sort of start to think through how we can embed that into research priorities, but then also in terms of the urgent need for products and services, how then can we actually build an ecosystem together which is utilizing the immense knowledge and experience of the public, and taking ideas from initial concept through to a commercially available product or service which is in people's homes, in people's communities, hopefully making a real and lasting difference. We also at Voice, we have a real concept, and I was just discussing this before the start of the webinar, around how this is not a time to duplicate effort or to reinvent the wheel. This is a time for collaboration and partnership, to pool resources and existing knowledge. Voice has been running now for 10 years, and we have huge operational experience of not just what works, but what doesn't work. And we're very keen to share that and build international collaborations, building chapters in other geographies. So for example, there is a Voice chapter in East Coast states. We have another planned for Canada, in Europe, China, and hopefully soon we can. So again, this is about connecting internationally, connecting citizens to have a really informed dialogue and debate about this such important issue of healthy longevity and healthy aging. It's about really democratizing longevity. It's about taking all of that knowledge out of the ivory towers. Unintentionally, often it's kept there, it's locked in papers and publications. And it's really about sharing that so that people are enabled to understand a lot more about healthy lifestyles through health and well-being. We work with employers so that people can understand in terms of what they need to, in terms of skills and knowledge and advances. And it's a global conversation about what works, sharing positive experiences, and really harnessing that imagination. Just the next slide, please. This is just a few images of our 8,000 members in the north of England. So very much about kind of, getting involved, putting meaningful activities for people to get involved and just making it easy. And increasingly, this is about between generations. As we've mentioned a number of times, healthy longevity is not about older people per se. It's about through life health and well-being. It's about making sure that people from the early stages of life have opportunities to get the best diet, the best nutrition, the skills, the education, so that through life we can accumulate that mental capital so that people reach later life with resilience, with financial security, with choices and opportunities to make the most of that later life. Just moving now to talk and share with you just a few of the companies that we're working with. If you go to the next slide, Erica. As I mentioned, what we do is we're harnessing, all of that knowledge and experience and working with businesses to try and sort of bring to market some products and services that people have said that they would like to see in their lives. So actually taking that research evidence and then working with a selection of businesses so that products and services are actually very accessible and people can actually benefit from their presence in their homes and their communities. And so very much about making it happen, not just talking about healthy longevity, but how can we actually catalyze and accelerate those products and services so that they are actually making a difference to people's everyday lives. I'll just go through a few of them. If you go to the next slide, Erica. I think any debate on human capital for us has to consider women. Women have traditionally, as we look ahead to economic recovery and growth post-COVID, it's obviously vitally important to understand everybody's and value everybody's happiness and well-being. But COVID has particularly highlighted that work blend is really essential. In the context of well-being economies, which is great interest from New Zealand government, Iceland, Scotland, etc. Well-being economies value fairly paid, meaningful and fulfilling work, lives with purpose, if you like, not just the number of jobs created. And for thousands of women the world over, access to skills, many people are unpaid carers, often have to leave the workforce early. So this issue of expanding the work horizon for women over 45 really does matter. And Voice opened our first US chapter a couple of months ago with an organization called Amazing Communities, which is a fantastic organization based in New Jersey. but working internationally, which focuses on women over 45 and supporting them to regain the skills that they may have not had an opportunity to gain, or to sort of future proof, in order to kind of work a little bit longer and find more meaningful work. So this very much an important emphasis on midlife, and that this is a connection with voice. And so again, sharing and harnessing all of that knowledge and wisdom from women about what work, and then being able to kind of direct that into kind of companies to help us to understand much more about what we can do to navigate the present and future of work, and make sure women have got the digital skills in order to really benefit from that. Next slide, please. Another example to share with you is perhaps my favorite. This is a mobile phone app on hand, which is really where volunteering can be carried out, and it's bringing vital support thousands of older people at the moment in COVID, but also provides employers a platform to support their local communities. So we know that certainly in the UK, but this is an international issue, that loneliness is a pressing social issue. In 2016, there were 1.2 million people who were chronically lonely in the UK, and over half of people over 75 living alone. Again, the COVID pandemic has really exacerbated social isolation, and it's made it much harder for families and friends to manage the care of loved ones, and for vulnerable people to leave their homes. So what Hand does is it addresses this issue by mobilising the human capital, the corporate volunteers who can help provide this at the click of a button. So this enables volunteers to support those in need. It relieves the strain on formal services. People can request help, whether that's with shopping, it could be collecting medicines, drop-offs, dog walking, or simply a chat on the phone. But then those people who've requested help are matched with a vetted local volunteers, and requests can come in via carers, via local agencies, etc. But it's a way of kind of, really mobilising the human capital of employer volunteer schemes, with employees really giving an estimated 11 million days of paid volunteering time each year. So it's a fantastic service. But it's a way of really mobilising and connecting people who may want to offer a bit of help, people who may want to receive a bit of help, but a way of digitally connecting people together. Started in London, expanded to Newcastle, and many plans to expand it internationally too. Now, in the race for COVID, again, I think we've had a story really of where innovation and international cross-sector collaboration between industry and its research and health service partners can really mobilise. I think that kind of shared ambition and that shared incentives has really helped health systems and life science industry to work collaboratively in developing vaccines, certainly, but also I'm hoping this will continue when the pandemic comes to an end. There's just so many of the problems that we face at the moment, if we go to the next slide, which demands solutions are developed from working together and really kind of mobilising the best available evidence in technology, in public health, as to what we might do to improve people's health, their mental health, and also their well-being, in order to extend working lives and their productivity and the skills. This is an example of a company, Breathe Happy, which takes online yoga effectively, but helping to build emotional and physical resilience in older adults by leveraging computer and cutting-edge emotional AI testing tools. And it's an example of where citizens told us that they had a huge amount of knowledge available, but they weren't really sure how to tailor that and how to personalise it to their own circumstances. and were worried about further injuries, etc. So a tool like Breathe Happy enables people to actually have that personalized, tailored advice about their own joints, about their own positioning, to help prevent a lot of the problems which then might actually prevent them sort of living life to the full in later life. If we go to the next slide. And this is something that we also looking again to have digital technology to encourage people to build healthy longevity into their everyday lives. So moving away from the car, we're looking at sort of strategies to pedestrianise the city that the National Innovation Centre Newcastle is based in, to look at really kind of innovative ways of how we can actually really promote well-being through promoting walking, pedestrianism, rather than kind of constantly kind of looking at mobility through the car and other forms of transport. If we go to the next slide, please. And this really comes together in something that we've called kind of the NICA, the National Innovation Centre Longevity as a Service, which is really about how you knowledge about what people need and want. How then do we bring together that alongside a range of businesses who can help to deliver that, who can help to introduce and create partnerships and linkages between different industries and different sectors, so that there's, from a consumer point of view, from a citizen point of view, there's an holistic offering. There's actually something that actually for them, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And it helps to bring kind of a portfolio approach for people to be able to select a range of services, a range of options that can actually really help them to invest in themselves and invest in their own healthy longevity and well-being. So it's really about bringing together, the key word I think is service, in terms of how we can take all of these proclamations about longevity and move it into actions, move it into really practically, often digitally enabled and data-driven, market-wise solutions, so that it brings science out of the labs, if you like, and into people's daily lives, so that people can really not just be the benefactors of all of this wonderful work on longevity, but actually be the initiators themselves. And it really does respond to consumer demand, because people are seeing gaps. There is a demand for end-to-end services. People are requesting tailored and personalised support, advice and guidance. Not everybody is different. There isn't one size fits all here. So successful, healthy longevity, it's complex, and it requires a number of interlocking issues to be addressed at the same time, to be addressed concurrently. Be they about the biology of aging, be they about health and social care, the physical environment, housing, transport. All of this needs to be considered much more holistically, with intersector, intergovernment where necessary, and inter-business collaboration. So this is what Longevity as a Service is addressing, and I've just got time, I think, today just to show you just a few examples of some of the companies that we're working with. Personal fitness in terms of Breathe Happy there, obviously really, really crucial, but really important for people to have that tailored advice about how they can best strengthen their joints, how they can actually get that personalised assessment, monitoring and feedback directly into their own living rooms, really. So this has been hugely popular. We know that many consumers, many citizens that we work with, they've got the basic messages around healthy aging. They've got the messages about stay active, stay connected, don't smoke, eat a healthy diet. But these messages do actually risk oversimplification, and they mask huge differences in knowledge and behaviour change. So we know that as we have more diverse populations, we're going to need a lot more detail in terms of giving the feedback, support and guidance, so that people can make sense of all of this wonderful science that's happening at breakneck speed. But actually, how can people understand their own biology, their own health and lifestyle trajectories, be they from metabolic factors, inflammation, stress, as well as environment and lifestyle. And This is the type of issue that the longevity as a service, building on human capital, really needs. And so another business in the cluster is a company called So Longevity, which through sensors and data and this kind of data-driven capability is really kind of delivering this real-time monitoring for people to give that kind of rapid feedback and personalized advice and guidance to people. Really, really important. And I think a trend that is really, really here to stay. Another example very quickly is something called glycanage. Again, thinking about healthy longevity, investing in people's mental capital for preventing a lot of problems, in terms of planning ahead. And actually, again, through accurate tests and advice, people can really, gain from that kind of knowledge that's available. And then again, so, a company that's actually based in Singapore, Connected Life, which is really, world class, we feel, in terms of the application of sensors, in terms of helping people with diagnostics, and giving that kind of real time, really detailed feedback and guidance. So again, the final point really there is a company. We work with many companies around this space of mental well-being, but it's just so important that consumers have got a range of tools, a range of options, so that they can really sort of invest in their own mental capital, invest in their own mental well-being, and that companies have got some options in order to help people to understand what they may need to do to make the most of healthy longevity. If we go to the next slide, please. So, this is where we are starting from in terms of citizen voice, is that, every day people are saying that there's more and more information available. There's a massive urgency, they feel a responsibility to do something to help their own healthy aging, but people just don't know where to start, and they don't know if what they're doing is making a difference. So in terms of helping people to invest in their own mental capital, in terms of the skills and so on, and translating all of this evidence into practice, this is something that we are really keen to work in partnership with a wide range of international organisations to understand how we can best reach the most number of people in order to kind of really support that healthy longevity. And the final slide, please, next slide. So this is just, again, thinking through, okay, how do you actually address this healthy longevity and support mental capital? We're going to need government, we're going to need businesses to step up and in for this. Traditionally in the UK, most of the lifelong learning budget, most of the education budget is still locked in the under 18s. If we have a 100-year life, that simply cannot continue. We do need to think through how we can actually build people's lifelong learning, build people's skills in order to have this intergenerational solutions and a focus on through life education, through life learning, constantly building and refreshing skills so that people can have work, meaningful work, purpose in later life, and enjoy a financial security and financial wellness. So a suite of companies that we are working with are concerned with that in terms of how can we make sure that financing later, longer lives and healthier lives, it's going to require different approaches to education. It's going to require different approaches to planning, new models for learning, different approaches to work, and really how we can think through financing pensions and care. So working with a number of companies, again, internationally, to look at this issue of how we can actually support through life health and well-being, and actually really value the interface between people who are working longer but may also have caring responsibilities. Perhaps the best example is a company based in Italy called LifeFeed, which tailors well-being solutions through kind of online learning for employees to really value the skills that they've gained from caring, and then promote this positive work-care-life balance and mental well-being. So how can all of those, which are traditionally termed soft skills that you gain from caring, but are actually hugely important in terms of your human capital. You learn so much from being a carer, whether that's for a small child or whether that's for an older family member. It's actually really important to have ways to direct that and to harness it. So LifeFeed is a mechanism to do that, so that actually people can really value the skills that they've gained, and actually employers can really value the skills that they've gained. So important in terms of retention of health and social care workers. Very, very important in terms of this work-care balance, which is really, COVID has put a proper spotlight on. So again, companies that are investing in employer health and well-being, health is the new wealth, I think is the most commonly used phrase, is super important, because this issue of healthy longevity means investing in that work-life balance, investing in skills through the life course, so that people can enjoy really meaningful work, but then also that can sort of pass into later life, and people can really benefit from that. So just a few examples today in terms of this issue of human capital. What they've kind of recognised and what they illustrate really is that whilst acknowledging the immense difficulties that we're experiencing globally with COVID, I think the pandemic has really shown the power of collaboration, of partnership, of working effectively together, different sectors, different industries, nationally and internationally, coming together to put their intelligence to address really, really big global challenges, of which healthy aging is one. I think as well it's shown the importance of intelligence, of research, organisations, of evidence and businesses smartly utilising human capital, smartly using existing intelligence, evidence and knowledge that we have collectively available, and then effectively and quickly translating this rapidly and effectively into products and services that can really make a difference to people's quality of life. And that's in early life, in midlife, and then the benefits accrue into later life. And then I think it's really shown the importance of a range of products and services which are supporting people to have individual, robust strategies for mental health and well-being, which are just critical to our individual, but also our collective societal and economic growth and prosperity. Next slide, please. I think COVID as well has shown, or the next slide, please, has shown the threat to human capital and the demands of multi-organisations response really now, as countries we're striving to contain the pandemic, we're striving to save lives and rebuild economies. But we know that we need immediate responses and strategies now, but we also need to look longer term in terms of forward-thinking responses, which can really help to build human capital resilience. And I think this area of empowering generations to thrive together, of actually seeing this as a collective cross-generational dialogue and conversation about how we can actually rethink policies, rethink services and products included. Yes, for today's older people, to make sure that more people can benefit from a higher quality of life in later life, but actually really sort of put the emphasis on intergenerational sustainable recovery, so that we can increase human capital, invest in human capital resilience in early life, midlife, for through life health and well-being. And then I think collectively we'll be much better prepared to plan and be proactive for future healthy longevity, to ensure that no matter where people live in the world, they have the opportunity to invest in human capital, to invest in their skills and in their own personal resilience, so that yes, we can raise the bar and ensure that more people are reaching later life in better shape than ever before, and have the choice and the opportunity, the products and services that they need in the communities and the homes they need, to make the most of this incredible extension in healthy longevity and live better, healthier longer lives. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Lynne. That was it was such an enjoyable presentation. I think, you know, so we've had some really good questions come in, which will pose to you. I think from a personal perspective, I love the term human capital. I often in my work refer to social capital, which, listening to you, is very, very similar. I think we have a very similar definition of what it is. And I truly believe that social capital or human capital is the very fabric of a community and a society. And as we've gone through this pandemic, for a number of people in a number of countries, I think that there's the potential for great distress around and implications on human capital. And I think it's absolutely critical that we acknowledge that, so that we can move forward. We hear a lot of talk about people saying, well, great, we'll work from home now, and companies will shut down, I suppose, their major organization, and people can work from home. And for me, the implications on the very fabric of our society, the social capital, and our need to be with people, I think we need to think wisely now about our future, and I got that out of your presentation tonight as well, because I think we could end up in a bad place if we dismiss that. But I was very, very warmed also to hear that Singapore's a leader in this space globally, and I'm sure that my colleagues are as well. So over to some of the questions, because there's some really interesting things. So our first question is, what is the next great intervention that will help healthy longevity that you foresee or are excited about? So this is very much a you question.
Well, I'm a gerontologist by background, and actually I'm actually really excited by the opportunities around precision medicine. Actually, I think, you know, I've worked very, very closely for many, many years on human capital, on mental capital, social capital, as we've been discussing, and on kind of, you know, the need kind of invest in people's human capital. But equally, I'm very, very interested in how this can be personalized for people, and actually how we can, you know, really start to prevent a lot of the problems that we have in later life, much earlier in life. And you know, all of that knowledge that's available to people. What's really exciting me now is the democratization of that, and how can we make it accessible, and crucially, how can we make it affordable? And I think, you know, this issue of you know, making sure that all of that is not just available to make the healthier healthier and the wealthier wealthier is really important. So actually democratizing all of this knowledge so that it's freely available, widely available, is something that really excites me.
Okay. Any thoughts about sort of genetic banks?
Well, I think Nick Palmerini, our director, has a particular interest in the ethics around this, and I think that's something, again, where we are very keen to put the voices of citizens and the voices of the public first and foremost. There are major ethical issues around all science, of course, but perhaps none so more around healthy longevity. And that's one of the areas that we're so keen to partner with other organizations through Voice, because this gives a mechanism for people to have that debate and dialogue, so that it's very open, it's very transparent, it's very honest. But then also we can also make the most of the possibilities. So yeah, I think putting ethics at the forefront is super Absolutely. Important.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's key. That transparency is what is very different in our future compared to sort of going back 10 or so 20 years. So the next question is, what do you think are optimistic solutions for aging support in the future?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think I think where I think we need to invest is in people's, as I said, in midlife. I think the more that we can prevent and plan for these amazing longer lives, the better. So I think investing in people's personal understanding of longevity, be that financial security, be that health and well-being, is really, really important. And then making people aware of the options available to them. I think is something that I'm very keen to kind of, to stress. But I think we need employers and employees, and I think we need citizens again to be at the centre of those debates. And we've got to address inequalities. I think what I'm not optimistic about is how successful we are at addressing inequalities. Whether you're in the UK, Singapore, wherever you are in the globe, they are widening. And so the gains that we've made in healthy life expectancy risk really narrowing. And so while I'm excited about the new technologies, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to data and AI, I am also wanting us to be putting a spotlight on healthy life expectancy and unequal aging. Because unless we address that, all of this wonderful science will not reach the people who really need it. And that's got to be a shared responsibility for all of our partnership working.
Absolutely. The next question is from Professor Rudd. So we were talking earlier. So Chris has said, Singapore makes great efforts to keep seniors in employment. And we certainly at JCU Singapore, that is very evident. Chris says his sense is that in the UK workforce has been reshaped by both COVID and Brexit, and not for the better. Any positive policy outlook for employment or re-employment for the over 50s in the UK space?
Great question, and it's an area of huge interest. I mean, I think most major economies are, really, worried about this issue of kind of productivity or the loss of productivity from workers, and we know that we're going to have kind of high unemployment potentially as certain, especially in the hospitality and leisure industries, as that kind of is impacted from COVID. But again, I come back to this issue of human capital, of actually addressing work-life balance and skills and education through life. It is ludicrous that somebody starts life as a teacher, for example, when they're 25 and may still want to be doing that when they are 55. But as nations, we are just not good at empowering people to consider options, to change career, to reskill, to update skills, and to really emphasize lifelong learning. Lifelong learning still remains the benefit of the very wealthy in terms of being able to access new training. And I think it's really important that we radically rethink policies to look at lifelong learning and really encourage employers to think through what they are offering their employees, so that we can really, unleash the potential of citizens really in terms of that. But I think all governments worldwide recognise the issue. But I think it still needs a lot of thinking in terms of how we can really embrace this opportunity for genuine through life education, genuine lifelong learning, and encouraging people to access skills which they can then, look to have several careers across a life course, perhaps breaks in terms of, work for caring responsibilities, much more imagination and creativity and flexibility needed there. But then again, looking at how we can empower people to have meaningful, purposeful later lives. Work is a big part of that. So certainly needs cross-thinking, certainly can't just be in education, needs to have cross-policy approaches. And I think universities globally have got a real role to play in how we can actually really drive that imagination about, through life skills and health and well-being.
Oh, look, I could not agree with you more. And not even in the reskilling space, somebody that maybe wants to transition towards retirement and says, look, I've driven a truck my entire life and I'll do that for you 2 days a week for 4 hours. And
absolutely,
it's mine. And I could not agree more that we need to really rethink the way we look at this in the future. But yeah, that was a really great question. So our next question is, given that a lot of solutions for healthy longevity or aging are aimed to be personalised to individuals, would it be conversely also to see more unique problems around aging if we approached it this way?
I think we need a balance. I mean, I think there's an awful lot. I mean, I used to work in kind of, disability rights years ago and dementia rights when I was, seconded to the UK government a couple of years ago. And there's so much that we can do by just sort of ensuring that our communities, our societies, our environment is actually designed for better, healthier, longer lives, if that makes sense. So I think first and foremost, this isn't just an individual issue, this is a societal issue. So the design of places and spaces is hugely important in terms of providing a context and framework to enable more people not to be disabled by age-related conditions, etc. But then I think in terms of individuals, I just think it's trying to get away from the fact that, all over 60s are the same. Obviously, this audience, we know that's not the case, but that ageism still perpetuates that this is about sort of, everybody having a very similar experience. The reality is that as you get older, you get more diverse, you get more different because your life experience has been so different. So I think all it is a plea to say that let's start treating people more as individuals. Let's not group the group, which, I think we've made huge progress in. But still with COVID, there was that narrative of all over 60s being the same. This terms like the elderly started to come back into everyday parlance. So actually this narrative about saying, no, people are individuals, people need choice. People need to be able to tailor solutions to their own personal circumstances, their own personal health and well-being is really important. But of course, the reality is that those products and services, those options aren't currently available at the moment. So we've got work to do in making sure that, we can bring to market a range of products and services so that people generally have those options.
Absolutely. The next question is from Associate Professor Denise Dillon. And she says, I love the idea of hearing from a range of voices. I wonder, though, if there'll always be something lost through not hearing from those who are not likely to engage or speak up.
That's a great question, Denise. Yeah, no. I mean, that's at the heart of what we do. Absolutely. And, this issue, as I mentioned a couple of times about inequalities, and is absolutely crucial. And we strive to make sure that we include people from all backgrounds, all circumstances, that people aren't excluded by digital technology, by geography, by circumstance. And again, I think from speaking only really now from the voice point of view, voice is a mechanism, and we work through community organisations, through a range of organisations as well, to really ensure that we've got a number of ways to listen to the voices and represent the voices of people from different communities who may not necessarily be wanting to actually contribute themselves, but we can at least have a way to kind of involve them. And again, that kind of emphasis is just hugely important. Somebody said to us a couple of weeks ago that they didn't think people who'd had very privileged lives could necessarily represent those who'd had very difficult lives. And that quote from a voice member is really, really important in terms of making sure that this is about listening to all voices, seldom heard voices, difficult to listen voices, but through a mechanism, making sure that we can organise and harness their lived experience too, and direct it into something that can meaningfully address it. So no one size fits all, but community engagement, partnership is absolutely cool.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question is from a woman's perspective. Hang on, it's changed here. From a woman's perspective, how can we change the narrative that older women are not as valuable as their younger counterparts? Particular comparison and how this does not similarly affect men, well, at least not as severely as it does affect women.
Well, that's an issue that I wish I could hand over to my my colleagues at Amazing Communities, because this is something that is really, really important. I mean, I think in some circumstances, women are disenfranchised throughout the life course. Actually, it starts early, and that is just impacted into later life. In the UK, women leave the workforce traditionally earlier than men, on average 10 years earlier, and do not return. And if they do return, they return to lower paid, unskilled work. And so it is absolutely something that we need to kind of put value on, not just on valuing women. I think it's about valuing everybody, but recognizing that women are more likely to leave the workforce in certain circumstances. And I think, again, it is about policies and approaches which enable people to contribute, to give people routes to contribute is really important. Certainly in Voice, 60% of the membership are women. We have people who are contributing their skills and experience on almost a weekly basis. People who have never had an opportunity to contribute to the design, the development of products before, but have got sort of 10, 15 years experience. For example, a lady we work with has been helping to design and develop a new dementia care service. She previously worked as a primary school assistant, but she's got 15 years of knowledge and experience about caring for family members with dementia. And she just ideas about what works and what she did. She got the benefit of hindsight to be able to say what she missed when she was in the middle of that experience. So giving women like that an opportunity to contribute and to share and really value their skills and their ability is just one small example of how, if people have the opportunity, people can kind of really thrive. You know, she's looking now to become a carer. She's looking now to take formal work through that caring experience. And so a very small example of somebody who has really, we valued her experience, valued her skills and ideas, and that has really sort of helped her to gain meaningful employment through that kind of process.
Thanks for that, Lynne. I just would like to say I'm conscious that people can sometimes see my phone. The question feed is coming up on my phone, so I keep kind of looking to my left at the same time. The next question, so I've got 3 more questions for you. 2 more questions. Singapore is strongly encouraging cultural harmony, and it seems that there must be a wealth of experience and knowledge sharing to be had from those who have experienced cultural assimilation, which can have implications on emotional well-being. Are such aspects being considered?
That's a great question. I mean, I think everything is kind of, you know, geographically and regionally specific for us. We've got to really think through all people's experiences. And actually just, you know, harness the learning and the lived experience, whatever people's circumstances. But I think that's something that, you know, should we be fortunate to partner to work in Singapore, we would put first and foremost as a priority, because I think that that recognition of people's cultural experiences, the cultural differences, the different lived and professional experiences that people have had, that's fundamental. And you know, I'm not sure it's been looked at enough, to be honest, but it's certainly something that is an important agenda item for the future.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that you know, Singapore offers that really unique environment in that space. So yeah. You know, I'm certainly, my team is certainly looking forward to connecting after tonight. Now, your last question of tonight that's come through is healthcare leadership in redefining and prioritising population health with multiple stakeholders in that environment to promote health or deliver care. So things like safe, timely, efficient, effective patient care. What are the issues in healthcare leadership that you envision prevent us building back better?
Oh, that's a great question too. I mean, I think I think the whole nature of healthy aging is forcing us to rethink how we train, how we think through the provision of health and social care and other services. Indeed, a lot of them have evolved. They weren't designed to be fit for purpose. I think, you know, we always make the example in the UK of retirement age of being 60 when life expectancy was 56. So we never expected to live for 40, 50 years in this retirement, and also to be living to kind of, you know, 85 and for 100 to be increasingly a possibility in the norm. So I think actually rethinking inter-sector collaboration, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary collaboration is just fundamental, and to train people from the very start to be able to have this mindset is crucial. And by that I mean how engineers can work with social scientists, how you know, clinicians can work with occupational therapists, with people in local government, so that we have this holistic mindset. And again, from a very kind of medical point of view, not just thinking through siloed clinical conditions. Everything is connected, knee bone connected to, etc. And it's really important that we consider the clusters of conditions, multiple conditions are the norm, but then have that focus on really early prevention so that we can intervene early and actually sort of really sort of build that kind of health and well-being resilience. So we've got work to do. I think the current systems that we've got, some we can tweak, others I think need a radical redesign.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's it for the questions posed. So thank you so much for being a part of our expert lecture series on healthy aging. Can I please ask the attendees that are on to stay and just answer 2-3 short questions of a satisfaction poll, but I would like to bring tonight's expert lecture to an end, and I wish everybody a happy evening or a very lovely day if you're Professor Corner. It's early in the morning. I think it's probably about 9:30. So I know that there's a number of wishes coming through saying how much they enjoyed today's presentation, and we will be in touch, no doubt.
It's a pleasure to join you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.